Print culture and the modern world. Introduction. Printed matter in books, journals, newspaper, etc. plays an important role in everybody's life. It tells us about our past history which has shaped our contemporary world as well as of the present day situations. This chapter deals with the development of print and its impact on social and cultural lives. In this chapter, we will learn the introduction, history of printing, print revolution, the reading mania, the impact of print culture in 19th century, manuscripts before the age of Europe, religious reform and public debates, new forms of publication, print and censorship. The history of printing. The earliest print technology was developed in China, Japan and Korea. This was a system of hand printing. Next, we go on to the print in Japan. Hand printing in Japan was introduced around 768 to 770 AD. Print in Europe. In the 11th century, paper from China came to Europe through the Silk Route. Marco Polo, a great explorer, brought the technology of woodblock printing in Italy. Luxury editions were still handwritten on very expensive vellum. Gutenberg and the printing press. Gutenberg was the son of a merchant and grew up on a large agricultural estate and had seen wine and olive presses from his childhood. The olive press provided the model for the printing press and molds for the letters of the alphabet. The Bible was his first printed book, and it took 3 years to print about 180 copies of it. Print revolution. The print revolution was not only a development or a new way of producing books, but it was a transformation of people's lives which changed their relationship to information and knowledge and with institutions and authorities.
The impact of print revolution. The print media created a revolution. It was just like a renaissance because the printing reduced the cost of books. Now the multiple copies could be produced at much greater speed. Okay? The books flooded the market. As they came out in the market with a greater speed, they flooded the market. The popular ballads and folk tales began to be recited and people enjoyed listening to books being read. They were illustrated with pictures. So media was really a revolution in the field of communication. Okay?
Religious debates and the fear of print. As a new world of debate, discussions and ideas were created by the print media, now people started thinking differently. But printed books were not welcomed by everyone. They had the fear that uncontrolled printing material and the wider circulation of books might spread rebellious and religious thoughts. This exactly happened when Martin Luther, the religious reformer, who wrote 95 theses, had criticized the practices and rituals of the Roman Catholic Church. His writings were read widely and it led to a division within the church and the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. The reading mania. During the 17th and 18th century Europe, literacy rates went up. New forms of popular literature appeared in print. Booksellers employed peddlers for book sale. Almanacs or ritual calendars were available along with ballads and folk tales. In England, penny chapbooks were carried by petty peddlers and sold for a penny. In France, the Bibliothèque Bleue was available at low price. Ancient and medieval scientific tests were compiled and published. The periodical press was developed in the early 18th century. The writings of thinkers such as Thomas Paine, Voltaire and Jean-Jacques Rousseau were also widely printed and read. Print culture and the French Revolution. Many historians have argued that the French Revolution occurred due to the print. The three arguments put forward by them are: number one, ideas of the thinkers were popularized due to the print. Secondly, it helped in creating culture of debate and dialogue. And the third, cartoons and caricatures in printing led to the growth of hostile sentiments. The impact of print culture in 19th century. Impact on children. Children became an important category of readers with the making of the primary education compulsory from the late 19th century. The publishing industries now had to publish school textbooks. A children's press was set up in France in 1851, fully devoted to literature for children alone. Impact on women. Women became important readers and writers. Penny magazines were specially meant for women. Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, and George Eliot were the best known women novelists. Impact on workers. For white collared workers, artisans, and lower middle class people, lending libraries became a good source of education. Self-educated working class started writing for themselves. Political tracts and autobiographies were written in large numbers by the workers. Further innovations. Series of innovations in printing technology can be seen from the 19th century. The power-driven cylindrical press was improved by Richard M. Hoe of New York. Series of other changes came up in printing with the turn of the 20th century. For example, the method of feeding paper improved, the quality of plates became better, and the appearance of printed text improved. Manuscripts before the age of print. India had a very rich and old tradition of handwritten manuscripts. Manuscripts could be seen in Sanskrit, Persian, as well as in various vernacular languages. Manuscripts were copied on palm leaves or handmade paper. Pages were beautifully illustrated. They were highly expensive and fragile. It was difficult to read them as a script was written in different styles. They were not widely used in everyday life. Manuscripts continued to be produced even after the introduction of the print till the late 19th century. Drawbacks of manuscripts. The production of handwritten manuscripts became unpopular for several reasons. It could not compete with the ever increasing demand for books. Copying was an expensive, laborious, and time-consuming business. Manuscripts were fragile, awkward to handle, and could not be carried around easily. Print comes to India. Portuguese missionaries brought the printing press to Goa in the mid-16th century. About 50 books were printed in Konkani and Kannada languages by 1674. The first Malayalam book was printed in 1713 and Tamil book in 1579 at Cochin by Catholic priests. A number of newspapers and journals appeared in print by the end of the 18th century. The Bengal Gazette was the first weekly magazine brought out by Gangadhar Bhattacharya. Religious reform and public debates. Colonial society has brought various changes among different social groups. Various debates were held on religious issues. Some people were in favor, while others criticized the existing practices and further campaigned for reform. The controversies between the social and religious reformers were printed in the newspapers, highlighting the issues like widow immolation, monotheism, etc. Ram Mohan Roy published the Samvad Kaumudi in 1821. Jame Jahan Nama and Shamsul Akbar were the two Persian newspapers published in 1822. With the help of the print media, the religious text could reach a wide circle of people, thus connecting communities and people in different parts of India.
New kinds of writing were created through printing. The cheap prints and calendars were available in the market, and the poor people started decorating their walls by putting calendars. This form of publication carried the reflection of people's own lives, experiences, emotions, and relationship. Because they wanted to read the reflection of their lives, they wanted to share their experiences and emotions and create a type of surroundingness and a belongingness, right?
Effect of print on women. Women's readings increased in middle-class homes. Women began to be educated in schools as well as at home. Journals began carrying writings by women and explained why women should be educated. Rajsundari Devi wrote her autobiography, Amar Jeevan, which was published in 1876 in the Bengali language. In 1880s, two Maharashtra women, Tarabhai Shinde and Pandita Ramabai, wrote about the miserable lives of the upper caste Hindu women, especially widows. In 1926, Begum Shakawat Hussain, an educationist and literary figure, strongly condemned men for withholding education from women. Print and the poor people. In the 19th century, cheap small books were brought to the market so that the poor people could purchase them. By the early 20th century, libraries were also set up. People started using common issues like caste discrimination and low caste movements in their writing. Books named Gulamgiri, written in 1871, Chote aur Bade Ke Sawal, written in 1938, Sachi Kavitaएं were written during that time. Print and censorship. The Calcutta Supreme Court passed certain regulations to control press freedom by 1820. It was only after the revolt of 1857 that the Englishmen demanded a check on the native press. In 1878, the Vernacular Press Act was passed, which gave rights to censor reports and editorials in the vernacular press. The government had the power to warn the newspaper publishing, and if in case of ignorance by the vernacular newspapers, the press was liable to be seized and the printing machinery confiscated. But despite these measures, nationalist newspapers grew in number in all parts of